And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of As Good as It Gets. I'm Ricky Hampton with my great friend Derrick Gervin, former Nets shooting guard, NBA player, the little brother of the Iceman, George Gervin, and a pure scorer just like everybody else with that last name, Gervin. They can put the ball in the back. I know you hear that everywhere you go, D, but it's the
Yeah,
truth.
I've been from a scoring family. I've been fortunate.
Yeah, and they don't even know about your older brother.
My older brother, my nephew, even my nephew played for Clyde Drexler, George Gervin Jr. at the University of Houston. He was three-time All Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Hey, but D, this is a great time of year, brother. We got the NFL, we got World Series stars tomorrow for baseball fans. You got college football, and now hockey, and now NBA tipped off. Tuesday was the opening night. Had a bunch of games last night. Got two games tonight. Right now, Philly and Milwaukee are doing battle in the 65-60. Milwaukee in the third quarter. Giannis and Embiid are both doing their things. And Milwaukee's newest addition, uh, Damian Lillard, already had 21 points at halftime, D.
Well, if you look at it, the whole question about Milwaukee is how Dame and Giannis will come together. Not even how they'll come together, it's when they'll come together. And it seems like they got off to a pretty good start in preseason. They didn't play a whole lot of minutes, but they played some minutes together, and it looks like good chemistry. If they continue to play like I'm thinking they're going to play, it's going to be interesting coming down to the playoffs with them and the Boston Celtics and a few other teams that we'll get into.
And that's the thing, man. And we've talked about this before. And in basketball, more so than any other sport, there has to be chemistry. You know, you and I can play football, don't like each other, don't speak to each other, but it'll be all right because you might play offense, I might play defense. But in
Yeah.
basketball, we're playing everything together. So you gotta have the chemistry, and that's not always having the five most talented guys on the court.
If you listen to Draymond Green recently, he was talking about the chemistry. He admitted that he made some mistakes last year. Of course, we know about the Jordan Poole incident. So Draymond started off this season talking about that because his relationship with Chris Paul over the years hasn't been the greatest. So he wanted to make sure that he kind of reached out to Chris Paul, put all the other things behind, and move forward as a team. So to hear him talk about chemistry shows how important it is because, like you say, the guys don't have to love each other. So it's different than football because you might be on offense and one other guy on defense. But here, you don't have to love each other, but it always helps if you respect each other and you all go out for the same common goal. And by doing that, you have to have the common respect for your teammate, and that's how you win.
Yeah. Hey, Derek, what I wanted to do tonight was just get your thoughts on the upcoming season. Uh, what you're looking forward to, some of the teams that you think can make a run and be surprises. And I figure we just go through some of these teams, but all the focus is on the West, and I totally understand that. There's so many good teams over there. But let's start in the East, and we'll work our way west. And just like I mentioned earlier, we're watching tonight two of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks and Philadelphia 76ers. And, it wouldn't be a year in Philly without some controversy. James Harden was not allowed to travel with the team the other day. In fact, security kept him from getting on the plane to go with the team to their game. What's going on with Harden, and is he going to play with them this year, and is he going to finish the year out with them?
Well, I can't even see him playing again for Philadelphia. If he even plays a game, I would be surprised. I don't know what's going on. Daryl Morey has been kind of quiet, the general manager. He hasn't said a lot, even after James called him out from China, as we all saw,
Yeah.
and called him a liar and said that he could never play for him again. We know James showed up for a day of practice. I guess that was to make sure his pockets didn't get hit. But then, of course, he the same day, I believe he practiced, but he also left after he found out that he wasn't getting traded to the Clippers. So this is just like an ongoing, continuing control. How long are we supposed to trust this process? James Harden is with every team he's went to, he's bailed out on. And so I know his value is not what it once was. And I don't think I think James is like giving himself a little too much credit as far as the value that he currently has. The Clippers refuse to give up Terrence Mann. The Philly has tried and tried. They finally decided to take a break right now and not talk about this trade for a minute. I guess both teams have to unwind. But to see this continue to go on, it's not fair to the rest of the Philadelphia players. And I'm hoping that Daryl Morey goes ahead and makes a move eventually. But the longer this pans out, the less value I see James Harden having, because it's only one team looking for his services.
Thank you for saying that, Derrick. Thank you for saying that. I don't get the fascination with this player because even when he's playing, his skills have not led to winning series and moving on in the playoffs. And man, if I was his teammate, I wouldn't be able to trust him. I know Joel Embiid must think, what the hell did I get myself into here in Philly? First, you had the whole thing with Ben Simmons. Now you got the whole thing with James Harden, and he had a guy there that has proven himself to be a playoff warrior in Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler.
And that's the guy they let go.
I don't get it. It's not fair. I feel sorry because I know Tobias Harris. And I hate to see him in a situation. It seems like every year it's like Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong in Philadelphia. They've got a good roster, but we still don't know now. Are they going to put the ball in Tyrese Maxey's hands over the course of the season, or are they going to continue to try to bring Harden back? My understanding is that he was sent home for the first 2 games. So they haven't said what they're going to do after that. And so that's the problem. What happens after his 2 games, so-called reprieve his situation? He's moved away from the team. What happens now after in the next few days when this is opportunity for him to come back to the roster? That's the ongoing issue in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's until they get that straight out, you really can't take the Sixers as a serious threat.
I don't. And it's sad that I don't, because they have a pretty good roster, but we don't know what kind of ball they're going to have to play, because it's a different type game with Harden with the ball in his hands as it would be with Maxey with the ball in his hands. They're 2 different type players. So they would have to play 2 different styles. But Philly's going to have to figure this out soon, because the more they mess around, I see the more chances for Joel Embiid possibly wanting to get out of there after this season, if he even makes it through this season past the trade deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't blame him one bit, man. The chaos of the Sixers. We talked a little bit about Milwaukee and it's now 73-69 of Milwaukee, and they're going to be right there. But the team I see, D, and they look good the other night, is the Boston Celtics. I think they are better. I think this is a better team than we saw last year.
Well, they lost. Of course, they lost Grant Williams. They lost Mr. Smart, Marcus Smart, and they lost Robert Williams. So with Robert Williams, they lose a little rim protection because he's a little thicker than Porzingis. And of course, Marcus Smart was an energizer for them. Of course, on the defensive end, he hit some timely baskets as well. And Grant Williams was a good help. He could guard several positions, and he could knock down the corner 3 as well. But when you have an opportunity to add two guys like Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, I guess you have to make that move. I know I would. I kind of look at it as an upgrade in the background, backcourt. Not to slight Marcus Smart, but I just think Drew Holiday is so versatile on both ends of the floor. He could defend multiple positions.
Yeah.
If you even look at the last game, Ricky, against the Knicks, at the end of the game, they had the ball in Jalen and Mr. Brunson's hands. And he went to make a move to go to his left to get off a shot. And Drew cut that off quickly and made him come back to his right hand, to his weak hand, and try to shoot the ball. And so they were able to squeak out a victory at the end of the game. But once again, it showed the true value of Drew Holiday. And then you throw in Kristaps Porzingis, 30 points, the highest point total, if you can believe that, of a Boston Celtic in their debut. That was hard. I found that hard to believe. All the history, all time, 30 points was the biggest debut for any player that's put on the Boston Celtics uniform. And I found that hard to believe. So if he can continue that kind of play against the Embiids and the Giannis's, like I think he will, I have Boston as a team to come out of the East if everything goes well as far as their health.
And he had 4 blocks. But here's something kind of sneaky. It is the presence of Porzingis now makes Al Horford a better player because he doesn't have to play those extended minutes. I'm looking at his line from last night. He played 25 minutes, had 8 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. I mean, he'll be able to, those little contributions will be steady from him throughout the season.
He looked kind of spry the other night too, Ricky. He got a dunk. They threw it to him under the basket. I thought it was Shaquille O'Neal under there. So he's looking kind of spry. So that's a good thing. And I think they will be able to preserve his legs a little more with Porzingis. That could be quite a tandem if you really look at it, because both guys are able to defend and both guys can pull you away from the basket offensively out to the three-point line. So I think that's going to be a great move. The only question I have is how their bench will hold up as the season moves on. But I think that'll be okay as well.
That is what I was going to bring up next, because I'm looking at their bench. You got Pritchard coming off. He got 11 minutes last night. Hauser played 13 minutes, and Cornette 8. So they didn't get much from their bench really outside of Horford's production. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And that's why, when we make our predictions, we also need to make them at the beginning of the year and after the trade deadlines, because this isn't necessarily the roster that will finish the year. And that's what I like about the NBA too. The trade deadline gives teams an opportunity to manipulate their roster and add pieces that they think they may need.
Well, you got a couple of teams right now in the East that you've already mentioned. Philadelphia is one of those teams that's going to look like they might try this to see how it works, maybe with Maxey. I don't know if they're going to suspend Harden or what they're going to do, but we're going to have to find out soon, and then we'll see what happens with them, because the trade line could be crucial for them. We'll get to the New York Knicks, because that's another team. Embiid has been in the conversations. We've heard his name come up for possible trade to the Knicks. So the Knicks are pretty much in the same situation. There are going to be several teams that are going to see how they measure up until the All-Star, the trade deadline. I'm sorry. And then that's going to dictate what a lot of teams do, because I think this year there are a lot of teams that think they can win it all. It's parity. So I think it's going to be a lot that happens around the trade deadline.
Hey, D, we'll move on from Harden, but I do want to ask one more thing. As a former player, I know you are all for whatever the players can get, but when you look at Harden's case, do you think he's respecting the game? I don't know if that's the right term. It seems to me that he's taking advantage of of the way the game is today. Uh,
You know what's sad, Ricky, is he's kind of.
you understand what I'm saying? I'm not really.
I understand you very well. It's a funny situation with James because it's kind of like he's manipulating the system, but this is the system that the NBA put in place, the Players Association, etc. And it's sad to see, but you know the saddest part is everywhere he's went, Ricky, he's asked out, and he's basically gotten what he wanted. Daryl Morey has catered to this man for 10 years. James has gotten everything he wanted, and that's the sad part about it. That's why I think he's continuing to go about things the way he's going about it, because it kind of reminds you of preschool or elementary school or something, but he continues to get away with it. And for me, that's the sad part, being a former player. When you mentioned respecting the game, I don't think he's respecting the game. You remember he came in with his flak jacket, it looked like, around his stomach or whatever when he was unhappy the first time. Well, not even the first time. The last time, I believe, before he went to Brooklyn, he was unhappy. And it looked like he had put on 30 pounds all of a sudden. And then he goes to Brooklyn, and then it's like he took off his little vest or whatever he had on, the flak jacket. So he's done everything he can to manipulate the system. So I guess the next collective bargaining agreement, the focus might be James Harden and how we deal with players of his status moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned acting like a grade schooler, a $30 million professional athlete. I mean, that's pretty.
Ricky, you know the sad thing is because they brought up that he's. I heard recently that he might be having a problem at home with his mom being ill or something like that. I hope that's not the case, and if it is, I'm sending my prayers for her to get better. But the issue is not his mom's health. James made it quickly stated what the issue is. The issue is Daryl Morey and playing for the Philadelphia 76ers. So why the mom situation was brought up as an excuse, I don't agree with that, because James clearly stated that the reason he wasn't in Philadelphia and practicing and playing with them was because of his situation with Daryl Morey.
Yeah. And yeah, man, if his mom is not well, we all know, because we all love our moms. We definitely want the best for her. But his track record, it's hard to give him deference on so many things, because this has just been an ongoing thing with James Harden throughout his career. But let's keep moving, man. That's going to play itself out. It'll be interesting. It's interesting to see. You mentioned the Knicks. I just don't see them in that top tier over there in the East, dude.
I don't either. And going into the year preseason, I had the Knicks in my top 4 for the Eastern Conference, but I don't anymore, because I thought maybe their style would change. And then I look at the other day, they still scoring about 100 points, 103 points. And for me, that's not the best New York Knicks team. I think they have some good young players, Emmanuel Quigley, Quentin Grimes. I think these guys are pretty good players. They got a young kid by the name of McBride, who's a very good player. But it seemed like Tibbs is all about playing his old school guys, except for guys like Derrick Rose, who we know had to move on to Memphis. And then he's got Evan Fournier, who might be their best shooter. But for some reason, he seems to be in Tibbs' doghouse. And I don't understand that, because if you're trying to maximize your team, the potential of your team, you do what's necessary. And that means as a coach, sometimes we have to come out of our comfort zone. And if your thing is your weakness is shooting, and you got a guy like Evan Fournier sitting on the bench, I just don't understand it. I didn't understand them letting Obi Toppin go. I don't understand them not playing Fournier when you need shooting. And so I'm just thinking maybe they might need a new coach. I know it's early in the season, but I'm like you. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Knicks right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at their depth chart. He is currently the 3rd string shooting guard.
They like Quentin Grimes. They like Emmanuel Quigley.
Yeah,
they like Barrett. They like Brunson. They like R.J. Barrett. So where does he fit? I guess but you got to find a way. If it's not working, at what point do you switch it up? They tried to go the opposite way last year with the non-shooters, and we know what happened. They overachieved, but they didn't go very. They could have went a little further if they maybe would have come out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about Boston. We talked about Milwaukee and Philly. I think those are the top three. Although Cleveland, they were just, I thought, a little rung behind them last year. Are they good enough? I think they're good enough to catch Philly this year.
Oh man, Ricky is, and if you look at their roster, they got a lot of people don't know that's where Max Strus went from the Miami Heat, went to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yep. If you look at their lineup, they got Strus, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Georgie Niang, who used to be with the 76ers, young man Damian Jones, Isaac Okoro, and Donovan Mitchell. Pretty good lineup. But after the way they played in the
I knew there was a butt coming there.
Yeah, because I like they lineup. But Ricky, I was so stunned. You hear people talk about Anthony Davis and his disappearing acts. Jared Allen. Oh man, one of my favorite players as far as energy and bringing, playing hard. He absolutely disappeared against the Knicks. And so I was really surprised to see that. I mean, really, really disappeared. He was a no-show. And Evan Mobley wasn't much better. So I like their team. If you look at it, they have Ricky Rubio on there. So they have some veterans. But I got to tell you, team, Ricky, that I think is going to be the surprise, even over the Cavaliers. And that's the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
I watched them the other night. They put up 140 points.
Yeah.
And my guys continuing to get better. If you remember a few years ago when they had the draft, there was one guy I mentioned out of that particular draft, and it was Tyrese Halliburton. And I'm looking at this guy at the time, he started off in Sacramento. That didn't work out with him and De'Aaron Fox. So now I'm looking at him in Indiana playing at an all-star level. And then you got guys like Obi Toppin, a great addition. Ben Mathurin, who's in his second year. I'm like, they got a really good team. They got a kid, Nimhard. Bruce Brown had 24 points in his debut.
Yeah.
So that was big, and that's my surprise team. Last year I talked about Oklahoma City being my surprise team in the league. This year it's going to be it's the Indiana Pacers.
When you look at the firepower they have, Buddy Hield, Halliburton, Mertrin can score the ball. They got Toppin now, Miles Turner, and they're always trying to trade Miles Turner.
I don't get it. And he's a rim protector, and he can knock down the three-pointers. So they got him. They even got a kid, Jalen Smith, who only played 13 minutes, but he had 13 points and 8 rebounds in 13 minutes. So they got a squad. And for me, I think they're going to be very consistent. I have a lot of respect for Tyrese Halliburton, and that's my team that I expect to shake a lot of things up in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and Rick Carlisle's a good, solid coach, too. He will get a lot out of that team. But you don't see them jumping up in that top three, do you?
No, I see them as
they can't catch Philly?
I don't even have Philly. I think they can catch Philly. What I call the threesome is Boston, Milwaukee, and Miami Heat. I don't even have Philly in the top three. I got the Miami Heat in the top three. Okay. We already know for some reason they just seem to be their style of play is made for the playoffs. Yeah. And they're not a fancy team. But they're a grinded out squad. And if you look at it, to me, people think because they lost Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, that their team went down. I think they actually upgraded. They brought in Thomas Bryant, so they brought in a big fella. If they need to back up Bam, or they could try to play them together, because Bam has a pretty good shot outside. And then, they just I think they got a really, really good team. And then they brought in this Jaime Vasquez, I believe that's his name, Vasquez. And he's a really good player. So he's a very mature player. I think he's going to play a lot. Kevin Love, of course, who's still looking good, like he's still got some tread on his tires. So that will be my big three. And then I would throw in the Pacers as my fourth right now, because we still don't know what's going on with Philadelphia. I don't even know if they could beat the Atlanta Hawks right now.
The Atlanta Hawks. You remember when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals? That's probably the
Yeah.
worst thing that could ever happen to them. Getting there because everybody's had expectations. They hadn't come anywhere close to there. But if we want to get to Atlanta, I gotta say, my Pistons had them last night.
Yeah.
19 storm back. Cade Cunningham was superb. But you said the way they grind out victories, and that is exactly how I would say they won that game last night against Detroit.
Man, I was
They just did. They did
what was the
all
score,
the
Ricky?
little things. Nothing spectacular, just the little stuff to win that game last night.
Well, then 123 to 122 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, 123, 122.
That's a heck of a game. I'm happy. You've seen the Pistons a little more than me, so I was sorry to see us coming up on the losing end. But if you look at it, the roster looks better. The chemistry looks better. I'm happy to see Monty Williams in Detroit, and I think we're gonna surprise a few teams over the year. I'm not saying necessarily playoff team, but I could see the Pistons being in the play-in games. And I think this was a good test to play against the Atlanta Hawks team. And so I'm looking. I think things are looking up in Detroit.
Yeah, as long as Cade's healthy, because I think he had 30 and 9, and the guys hit shots. He probably had 13 or 14 assists.
Yeah, that's the problem.
He'd have been throwing it to you.
Hey, Ricky, what do you think about that though? Because do you think the Pistons realize how valuable he is? Because if you take Cade off that team, I don't even think they have a chance to make the playoffs. I look at them as the bottom of the conference. And then with him, I look at them as a possible team that can sneak into the playoffs and that play in. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree with you. The way he looked last night, I mean, he looked like one of the best players in the league. And they didn't have Bogey last night. So Bogdanovich, they'll get him back at the end of the month. Then they'll get Monte Morris back. So they, both of those guys are going to help them.
And they kept Joe Harris, right? If I'm correct, they kept Joe Harris.
Yep, they got Joe.
So Harris. They have some shooters, and they have some veterans.
And they got Alec Burks.
So we have several veterans. Now we just got to figure out how to consistently blend them in with the young guys like Arsor Thompson and guys like that. Because you look at it, we got Enduran and all those guys, Ivy. It's a great mix of players, but we just got to develop some type of chemistry. And if we do that, I think the Pistons are going to surprise a lot of teams.
Thompson is a great defender. He had 5 blocks last night.
For a guard.
He had 5 blocks. He's got long arms, and he's long and athletic. Man, they played Marvin Bagley over James Wiseman last night. I don't know. You play who's doing the best, so I guess he outplayed him in camp. But man, I like Wiseman's talent.
We've been saying that now for going on about 2 or 3 years now, though. Man, I thought with James, because he didn't get to play much at Memphis when he was in college, that it was going to take a little while. But I honestly didn't expect it to be this long. And for them still not to have enough faith in him right now to play him over Bagley, man, that's a little – it raises concerns for me. I like Marvin Bagley, but I mean, come on, James Wiseman's a 7-footer.
Yeah. So, we'll see. That's one game in. That's one game in. So we'll see with that. Okay. Where else you want to go in the East, D? And then we got to get to this Western Conference.
I don't have a whole lot more to say. I just hope that it's going to be interesting to see how Dame fits in defensively in Milwaukee, because the loss of Drew, I think, is going to be something that will eventually show up.
Yeah,
I think Milwaukee's a better offensive team, but I know they're loaded in the front court defensively with Portis and Brook Lopez, and you can go to Robin Lopez and you can go to Giannis, but I'm interested to see how they handle it when teams start going at Dame offensively and posting him up. That's what's going to be very interesting to me.
And you know what, Derek, to your point, it's 85-88 with 20 seconds to go in the third quarter. So that Milwaukee does not want to play at this pace all year.
No, I can't see it. Now they have to slow it down. They're not that kind of team that get up and down the floor like that.
You're looking at almost 120-point game here. They don't want to do that every night, I know.
No, because I mean they'll be giving up. Because a lot of teams, I'm telling you, they're going to go at Dame defensively. Because a lot of times it's not man-to-man defense like it used to be. Everything is switching to create mismatches, and Dame is a liability defensively, and that's my biggest concern for the Milwaukee Bucks is how they handle defense around the perimeter, and then when teams go at Dame down on the low post.
Yeah. Well, let's go west, young man. The Wild West. I mean, there's so many. Where do you even start? Let's start with the defending champs.
They look good, but they didn't play a lot. They didn't play as many players as I want. They did play a kid named Watson. I believe it's Perry Watson or something like his name is. And then they played Zeke Naji, the big fella, who they didn't play much last year. I expected him to play a lot of minutes last year. He didn't, but I see he was in the lineup this time. But if you look at Denver, they look pretty strong. I know it was a ring celebration and all that, but they came out like they were focused. The Lakers had done a lot of talking. Well, Anthony Davis had done a lot of talking about he didn't like how Denver conducted themselves after beating the Lakers last year in the playoffs. So he was waiting on revenge. And then we know how that went. I thought the Joker was the Joker. Jamal Murray looked great. Aaron Gordon, they look like a team now that expects to win. And so I was happy to see them. They look like the Denver Nuggets of old.
Who's going to be their Bruce Brown now, though?
Well, that's going to fall on Christian Brown. And then they have another young man who they didn't play by the name of Strother. And I think he's going to end up being the guy they're going to have to put in there because the guy can score. He's not a Bruce Brown as far as, causing havoc and all of that. And defensively, it might be a little drop off. But I think eventually he'll be the guy they'll have to plug in. And, of course, Christian Brown had pretty much a breakout playoffs. He did quite well in the playoffs. So I think those will be the two guys that have to hold the fort down, as they say. But, I mean, they look good. All the guys look like they were in sync. They look like a champion.
I still got questions about their bench, though.
Yeah.
I know Peyton Watson, I don't know what he can do on a regular basis. Braun is going to be a good one. Reggie Jackson is the backup. But hey, KCP. Just can't forget about KCP. He'll be a valuable piece for them. Also, well, he's a starter, but he's
tricky. The reason I give them such a good chance and I picked them to win it again is because, first of all, they have the Joker, but they rebound and they get timely stops. The NBA today is not a lockdown league. It's more offensive oriented now, but it's the teams that get timely stops. And that's what Denver did. They did it throughout the playoffs. They are a team that played really great. I believe they were 34-7 at home last year. And then they played well in the playoffs at home. But on the road, they lock down, they defend, they get those timely stops. And that's what people need to talk about more. They say that Jokic is a liability defensively. I totally disagree with that. He's not the high jumper, the rim protector like a lot of other players, but he has very quick hands. And he gets his hands on a lot of balls and causes a lot of loose balls, a lot of turnovers. And that's something they don't seem to talk about when they talk about the Denver Nuggets. So I think their team is primed to try to go back and try to do it again. And they look really good to me against the Lakers.
Who's their biggest challenge in the West?
Phoenix Suns, of course. And I have to say that.
Now, that's some firepower right there, man.
The only question I have with Phoenix is how at some point I think they're going to need a true point guard. They lost Chris Paul, of course, last year, and then we know he got hurt in the playoffs. But now it puts the onus on Devin Booker more so as a ball handler and Bradley Beal. And those are two guys that are used to scoring first, scoring mentality first, and then they assist. So now one of them is going to have to kind of change their roles somewhat, sacrifice, I'll say, and be more of a distributor and try to get the other two guys involved more. Is it going to be Bill trying to get Booker and KD more involved, or is Booker going to have the ball most of the time and trying to get KD and Bill involved? So that's what's going to be interesting and dynamic to me to see how they figure that out.
Which one of those guys you think can do that job better?
I think really I think Bradley Beal could do it more because he's he's been known as a scorer, but I need Devin Booker and Devin, if you look at it, he has that Kobe mindset, that Michael Jordan mindset offensively. So I want to keep him in a score first mode. And he's a very good passer as well, but I want to keep him in KD, and we need them to be our leading scorers. So I would have the ball in Bradley Beal's hands and make him the point guard. And then when he has an opportunity to go one-on-one or do whatever, when he has his chances, then he goes for it. But first of all, he has to establish those two guys. So I think with Devin Booker and KD need to lead that team, and Bradley Beal is the one who's going to have to sacrifice the most.
But you know who could be one of the most important pieces to that team? That's Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, the big fella.
He's going to be a guy, if you see the Joker in the play, he can bang with him.
Nurkic is a good player, and he also a good passer.
Especially considering that the guy that was traded, I forgot his name, Derek.
DeAndre Ayton.
I mean, the Joker killed him last year. I think Nurkic would battle him a little better than Ayton. And I don't know why he let him. I don't know. Maybe that was just a bad matchup for him.
I thought the Nurkic trade was great. Not saying that he's necessarily a better player than Ayton, but he has a better skill set for Phoenix. And I thought he was a huge addition. I thought Nasir Little was a huge addition. And the biggest addition so far, Grayson Allen has been spectacular in his role. And he's been aggressive offensively. He's going to stick his nose in there defensively. And so far, he's been the surprise because I was wondering how much they would use him in the lineup. And it seems like he's going to be a regular part of the rotation and going to be playing 30-some minutes a night.
And that's what you just said about Nurkic goes back to the point I was making earlier in the show. He may not be a better player for Ayton, but he may fit what Phoenix is doing better than Ayton. That's, to me, the beauty of basketball.
He's a rim protector. He's a better rim protector than Ayton. He seems to have the fire. He has that fire more so than Ayton right now. And he just seems like to be a team player. He never makes any waves, causes any problems in the locker room. He's a guy that just shows up to play. His only thing has been health. And when he's healthy, he gives it 100% every night. I felt some nights that Ayton didn't give it 100%. I think he got kind of caught up too much in the situation with Monty Williams, the coach and the player situation that they didn't solve. But Nurkic brings a breath of fresh air. So far, if you look at their team, they look powerful. It's going to be scary. A lot of teams are going to really go over their scouting reports to figure out how to try to limit all of these guys. Because if you look at their lineup, even I believe Okoro starts in the lineup. The last name is Okoro. There's two. I get confused because there's an Okoro in Cleveland. But the young man, I think, is Okoro in Phoenix. I'm not sure of the name. It does start with an O. But he's in the starting lineup.
I'll get it for you. Hey, and now you talked about Ayton's relationship with when you got some things going on with player and coach. Like we talked about Harden earlier, but he's kind of a different kind of set because he's gonna always have issues. But when when something comes up with like Ayton and Monty Williams, who's responsible for working that out? Is it on the coach? Is it on the player?
Sometimes it can come down even to the assistant coach, because a lot of times the players might have a relationship with one of the assistant coaches. And if you look at it, to prove that, I believe Milwaukee brought in the Terry Stotts, who of course is gone now, but they also brought in Sam Cassell. So sometimes it's just having that mediator. I thought Monty should have tried to reach out to DeAndre more so, because he's the more the veteran, and DeAndre's still young and kind of rough around the edges. A young guy still learning the ropes of the NBA. So I thought Monty could have handled it better, but I also thought DeAndre could have been a lot more professional, not trying to show his coach up on the live national television. So they both played a part in it. But I'm gonna say that I thought Monty could have probably tried to handle it and nip it in the bud before it continued to fester as the season went on. So I'm gonna give him the most blame. But both guys played a part in it.
Hey, you talked about Josh Okogie.
Okogie, yes sir, that's him. Okogie. Yeah. He's a pretty good player as well. And then remember this, they brought in Eric Gordon, Ricky.
Yeah, well, you know what he gonna do.
That's so we know Eric gets it. Eric's looking to put it up. Yeah. But once again, if you look at it, Eric Gordon is not a guy that's familiar with handling the ball a lot. He makes turnovers when the ball's in his hands. Grayson Allen is not the greatest ball handler. So it still goes back to how they're going to handle this when it comes playoff time and teams start zoning in on KD, Devin Booker, and Bill. How are they going to handle that then? Who's going to be the guy, the calming force, I would say? Kind of like like Boston brought in Drew Holiday. See, if you look at it, Marcus Smart wasn't that calming force, Ricky, if you remember. He made uncharacteristic mistakes down the stretch, just like Brown and Tatum.
Yeah.
So I think bringing in somebody, that's what I think they're going to end up needing in Phoenix, is that one guy. And they might come around the trade deadline. So this is like right now they're trying to see how it's going to work. But that's another team that might be making a move come trade deadline if the point guard situation doesn't work out with Bill and the Booker.
Yeah. Let's stay in the West. Let's go to LA and talk about both LA teams. We can start with the Clips, who are awaiting the arrival of James Harden, I guess. But even if he does not show up there, that's still a really good roster. Anytime you got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, you can roll out there. I won't say every night, but hopefully most nights.
I'm gonna have to apologize a little bit, at least right now, because as you know, I'm not a big Russell Westbrook fan. But I got to admit, in game one, Russ played quite well. He was the Energizer Bunny. He only had 3 turnovers. And I'm going to make sure I stress that. They weren't costly turnovers either. So to see him and PG and Paul George and Kawhi combined for 50 points between the two of them. And Russ was an excellent player. He had a couple of rim-shaking dunks. He pushed the pace. And they just look like a good team. They played well the first game, and I'm gonna give them credit, and I'm gonna give Russ some credit right now because I've been kind of hard on him. But so far, first game, I thought he played fantastic. He led the ship.
Is this team capable of challenging Denver?
If healthy, and if Russ continues, see, the only thing, Ricky, is I know Russ kind of reminds me of Anthony Davis. One night you can get a spectacular performance, and then the next night you can get a performance that we just wish we could block out of our minds. So if Russ can stay consistent, and of course if Kawhi and PG can stay healthy, yes, they're a team that can contend. Yeah. They got a nice lineup, but they still got Plumlee in there. They got Zubac, so they've got size, they got rebounding, they got rim protection. It's just a matter of them. Yeah, say that again.
Kenyon Martin and Powell are there.
Yeah, they got a good roster. So it just a matter of staying healthy. They're 2 main players. And if Russ can continue to be the Russ that thinks about team first, then yes, they could contend.
You know what? Russell Westbrook I I don't think he's a selfish player, D. I just think he's just out there playing and just going so damn fast
Yeah.
that he doesn't always understand what's going on here.
No, that's a perfect breakdown, Ricky, and I agree with you. I see what you just said is perfect. That's a perfect description. It's not. I never thought he was a selfish player. It's just that, yeah, sometimes he's the type of get the rebound, and sometimes he forgets the other four guys are not as quick as he is, and he goes,
Yeah, he's
and
just
then
gone.
and then he gets himself into trouble, and then he reacts.
Yeah,
So if he can limit that this year, there's no question of that they could be one of the top four teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, the Western Conference. I'm sorry.
what about the other LA team? They started off last year horrible, 2-10. I'm like, these guys won't win 20 games, and they made it all the way to the final. You said they would do that, D. Can they continue that momentum they built and challenge Denver?
I want to say yes, Ricky, but and then we got to okay, this is a tale of two halves. If you look at it, the first half, I was kind of disappointed in Anthony Davis in the Denver matchup, right? Because Jokic had 19 points and I believe 8 rebounds at halftime, and AD had 17 points. But if you look at it, one of them had 19 and 8 and 2 assists. The other one had 17 points, 1 rebound, 1 block, and 1 assist. Now I'm trying to figure out AD's your go-to guy, and he's a 6'11, 6'10, 6'11, 7-footer. I know he doesn't like playing the center position, but with the Lakers, it is what it is. That's what he's their center. And to have 1 rebound, I thought was ridiculous. And then in the second half, he comes out and he gets more rebounds, but he puts up 0 points. He goes 0 for 6 in the second half. And I'm saying, like, that's his team, supposedly. He's the franchise now. LeBron has stated that clearly, publicly, that is AD's team. And then AD comes out in the second half, and he reminds us of why he's called sometime there's all kind of names he's been called. I won't bring up a few because I said a couple last year that weren't too nice with those initials AD.
Yeah,
But he's got, if he does better, Ricky, and if he's more consistent and starts knocking down that jump shot, and I don't mean the 6 3-pointers like Darvin Ham was talking about. I think that's crazy. You let the game come to you. And if you end up taking 6, then so be it. But you don't go into the game telling your center, I need you to take at least 6 3-pointers a game.
right.
If AD can hold up over the course of the season mentally and physically, yes, I would put them in the top 4 without question.
Well, I like well, you know, LeBron will do what LeBron does. I like Hachimura and Prince, but Russell as your lead point guard, I don't know. Could Gabe Vincent beat him out of that job?
He could, but I'm gonna tell you what bothers me about that, Ricky. It's one game to the season, right? And LeBron is already making waves, man. I don't know if you heard him when he was mic'd up and he was talking to Phil Handy, the assistant coach, and he was basically throwing out the lineup that he thought should be in the game. He asked them, and I know he was being sarcastic, but he asked Phil Handy, "You guys remember I could play point guard, right?" So he mentioned the lineup of himself, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Torian Prince, and Anthony Davis. So basically, when you telling the coaches that you could play point guard, that's a slight at D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not liking the feel. And if you look at it, here's the crazy thing: LeBron played 29 minutes. All 29 minutes he played, D'Angelo Russell was on the floor at the same time. So I don't understand why they need D'Angelo to play 29 minutes with LeBron and not let LeBron be the guy that kind of orchestrates the offense. But I think they're going to have to shore that up, and they're going to have to figure out how valuable Gabe Vincent is going to be moving forward. Do they turn the ball over to him, or do they put it in LeBron's hands?
So what do you when you say shore that up? Have Russell out there where he can have the ball more when LeBron's not in the game?
You have to have, yes, because if you look at it, Ricky, D'Angelo is more of a score first point guard. He's not a guy that gets players involved, and I could prove it. Because if you looked at the second half, AD is the type player that you kind of, momentum player. So you got to get him involved. See, if he was playing with a Drew Holiday or Chris Paul, those guys, they're going to make sure AD stays engaged. I bet D'Angelo Russell never thought one time to keep him engaged.
Right.
So it's a different type plan when D'Angelo's on the floor. He thinks score first, and that's not what they need. And, LeBron is a guy that's used to having the ball in his hands, being the orchestrator.
Right. Man, I tell you, I love point guards like Drew Holiday, they literally orchestrate the game out there. One of my favorite guys doing that was Chauncey Billups by the time he got to Detroit. I mean, he was like a orchestra conductor out there. A lot of guys now, and maybe the game has changed along those lines. They just don't think that way when they're trying to run the offense. They don't think about, this guy hadn't had a shot in a minute. Let me see if I can get him something.
I don't understand it because you need your big man to stay engaged defensively and you need them to rebound. But a lot of times it's just human nature. Players don't play with the same energy when they're not touching the ball. I even heard LeBron tell Phil Handy that he was just standing around. I'm feeling I'm just out here. I'm just floating around, not doing anything. So they're gonna have to shore up the offense. And then you got to mention you could also put the ball in Austin Reeves' hands more. So I don't think at the end D'Angelo Russell's the answer. Gabe Vincent might be the answer, but I still think LeBron has to play more than 29 minutes a night, and he has to have the ball more as an orchestrator.
Okay. Hey, D, we're running short on time. Let's any final thoughts? Any other team out west you want to hit on, you think?
Well, Big Victor Wembanyama had his debut.
Yes.
Foul trouble. He got in foul trouble. So he ended up with 15 points and 5 rebounds. And a lot of people were talking negatively about him. But I will say this. He had 6 points, I believe, at halftime or whatever. He got 9.9 crucial points. The guy was scoring down the stretch when they needed him. He actually helped bring them back. They ended up falling short to Luka and Kyrie and those guys. But it was very nice to see Victor come back from his foul trouble and still be able to be in the game late in the game and mentally engaged. For a 19-year-old, I thought that was very impressive. And I think his future is very bright, which means the future of the San Antonio Spurs is very bright.
Yeah, man, he's only going to get better and better. Hey, quickly on Dallas, can they do anything? They got 2 of the best players in the NBA on their roster.
They played at a faster pace this time, and that's how I thought they should have played last year. I said that they could contend if they pushed the ball up the floor instead of Kyrie and Luka dominating the ball. But Luka was on his A game last night. He hit some timely shots, and he also made some timely passes. He made the last play of the game was a crucial one when he hit Kyrie in the open in the corner for Kyrie's winning 3-pointer. So if they could continue to play like that, but keep the other guys like Josh Green, who they just gave a new 3-year deal for $41 million, if they could keep using the young guys and bringing them along, they're a team that could contend. Yeah, I won't say top 4, but I could see them in the top 6, and then from there it's a crapshoot. Who's the healthiest?
New Orleans.
They look pretty good with Zion, but I just still think they're one player short. They have some good players, Herb Jones. They got some athleticism, but I don't know. We don't know if Zion's going to be able to even play 50 games, let alone 65. Yeah. And I watched him. He got a few dunks, but as you know, I don't like to see him doing all that high jumping.
Yeah.
And I want to see him kind of conserve some of his energy. I'm not saying slack off, but learn to pick his spots a little better as when he's going to be aggressive and when he's going to do all that high flying. And if he can stay healthy, they got a pretty good lineup with him, C.J. McCollum, and Brandon Ingram. That's a pretty good threesome if they could stay healthy. They're not a team that I really believe in, but if Zion stays healthy, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Hey, brother, we got to get out of here, D. This was fun, man. We got a lot to look forward to. And, gosh, I don't know if we got to all our teams tonight, but we'll be back next Thursday, and we'll finish it off there.
It's been crazy, Ricky. But if you look at it, people's unhappy. Some of the old school, I've come around. I like the way the game is going. I've gotten used to the way they play now. And if you look at it, we wanted parity, and that's what we have. So that makes it very interesting to me. You don't know. You can't just throw the ball out there and say these two teams are going to win the championship, this team or that team. And I love that.
Last question. How many teams you think are capable of winning the championship this year?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to say 6 because I have the Sacramento Kings in there as one of them as well. I think losing to Golden State.
Okay,
I think it's about 6 teams.
Kings, Milwaukee,
Lakers,
Boston,
Milwaukee, and Boston, Phoenix, Denver, Lakers, Sacramento will be my top 6 right now.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Hey, but I gotta go, man. We're over the limit.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Thursday, 9 o'clock. For Derrick Gervin, I'm Ricky Hampton. Peace, everybody.
Ricky, I love you, man. Have a good night.
Have a
Everybody
great night.
stay safe.
Too, brother.
Talk to you soon.